The twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul have always had a sibling rivalry. The younger, flashier twin, Minneapolis, gets all the attention, while the older, more historic St. Paul gets all the respect. But would we still feel the same about St. Paul if it went by its original name? St. Paul feels educated, historic, conservative, stable. The Cathedral of St. Paul looks out over the city keeping watch. There's educational institutions on just about every corner giving an Ivy League vibe. It's all so respectable. But what if, instead of being named after St. Paul the Apostle, they were still named after this guy? Pig's Eye Parent. That's right, Pierre Pig's Eye Parent arrived near Fort Snelling in 1832. He was a little unusual looking with one blind eye, and that's how he got his nickname. He also had a criminal history, and he made his living selling moonshine to the settlers, soldiers, and Native Americans at the fort. He was not popular with the authorities. In 1838, he was forced off of Fort Snelling land. He just moved a couple miles downriver and set up shop outside of Fountain Cave. The cave had a natural spring for his whiskey and cool caves for storage, and his customers could paddle right up to his door. Right now you might be thinking, big deal, a shack. But you have to remember that at this time there was nothing around for miles. Minnesota wasn't even a territory, let alone a state. Fort Snelling had only been around for 20 years. By comparison, Chicago at this time had a population of only 4,000 people. He was a very big deal. He had built up enough reputation that one of his customers just put Pig's Eye as a return address on mail, and it worked. The colorful name was short-lived though. Father Lucien Gaultier arrived in 1841, and he built the first Catholic log cabin chapel. A branding guru before his time, Gaultier proclaimed in the newspapers, "Pig's Eye, converted thou shalt be, like Saul, arise, and be henceforth St. Paul." He actually just started using the name in birth and death records and things like that, and it sort of caught on. Pig's Eye didn't just lose his namesake. In 1842, he also lost the rights to his land. After a few years, Fountain Cave became a tourist destination, and for almost 30 years, people came in the summers to enjoy the cool air and water inside the caves. By 1960, the cave was completely full with debris, and construction of Shepherd Road collapsed the entrance. Today, all that's left is a historical marker. But Pig's Eye isn't the only skeleton in St. Paul's closet. In 1849, when Minnesota became a territory, St. Paul was named the temporary capital. In 1857, there was an attempt to move the capital across the river to St. Peter's, today Mendota. This was because then Governor Willis Gorman and his fellow Democrats owned a lot of land in St. Peter's, land that would be much more valuable if it was in the state capital. A bill passed the legislature that would move the capital to St. Peter's. That bill was passed on to the committee that was supposed to just approve it and then give it to the governor to sign. It was just a formality. But the head of that committee was Joseph Rolette. Rolette was in the camp that wanted to keep the capital in St. Paul. Out of legal options, Rolette took the only physical copy of the bill and disappeared. For 5 days, he hid out in the Fuller House Hotel, smoking, drinking, and playing poker, just biding his time until the legislative session ended. I wish I could say that his stunt was what kept the capital in St. Paul, but actually the rest of the story is kind of boring, so it's much more fun to just remember it this way. Minnesota became a state in 1858. It's a shame that neither of these stories get much attention anymore. They may not be heroes, but they're stories of creativity, perseverance, ingenuity. They're something to look up to. There are a couple portraits of Joseph Rolette, but they aren't on display anywhere. In fact, the area that Rolette represented in territorial Minnesota, Pembina, became a part of North Dakota. They did name a city and a county after him there. Pig's Eye got a lake and a park named after him, although it's built on a landfill. They also named a beer in his honor, which is pretty fitting, but it's not available anymore. In Kellogg Mall Park in downtown St. Paul, you can say hello to Pig's Eye and say a prayer with Father Gaultier. The park is on the land where he built that first log cabin chapel. If you're in St. Paul for a game at the X or a show at the Ordway, take a minute to walk through downtown and think about how it would feel if you were in Pig's Eye, Minnesota. There's a lot more to see at joyinminnesota.com. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos, and let me know in the comments if there's a story you'd like to hear, because every person, place, or thing has a story. Thanks for watching.